When you have an access point, you are given that access point in order to gain entry into a certain location. You may receive several access points in order to get to a certain location, in order to get to a certain area. Simply me, how you doing this morning? You might have several access points that gets you to where you need to go. See, so this morning, that's what we're going to be focused on. We're going to be focused on different access points, right? The Bible talks about different access points in a sense of where your faith is. So your faith has to be in tune with God in order for you to gain access to these access points. It's not a quick a trick question when I ask the question, do you believe that there are access points in your faith? Do you believe that there are access points in your faith? So this morning, that's what we're going to be focused on today. That's what we're going to be taking a look at today. Are there access points in your faith? Let's pray. Father in heaven, we want to thank you, Lord, for allowing us this opportunity this morning to spend time in your word. We thank you, Lord, for giving us and granting us, dear Father, this opportunity. Father God, we just want to thank you for hearing us. Thank you, Lord, for blessing us, for keeping us. We thank you for safe mercy, safe travels, dear Father. We ask you, Lord, that you will continue to walk with us every step of the way. We love you, Lord, and we thank you in Christ's name. Amen. Now, your access point is something that can be granted to you, especially an access point of faith. See, faith is to believe in the things that are unseen and the things that are not in front. But that's what faith is. Faith is for you to have some type of trust in something, even though you may not see that something, even though that something may not be tangible. You have a certain trust in it. See, by you having a trust in something, it allows you to start to build your faith. You start to gain your faith. You're strengthening your faith. And there are certain points where you have access points within your faith. Picture it as if you're playing a video game. Right? When you're playing a video game, you start off the game on the same level. Everybody starts off on their game. Callie, how you doing? What's up, bro? Um, Everybody starts off on the same level, right, of a video game. Nobody starts off on a higher level than anybody else when you start a video game. The video game that comes to mind for me is a video game I used to play all the time as a child, and that was Mario. Mario was such a fun and interesting game because Mario was a game that talked all about going through levels and getting through different areas in order to save the princess. That was the objective of the game. You save the princess and you defeat Bowser and his minions. That was the whole point of the game. So I remember when we used to play Super Mario World and we used to have two players, right? And when you had the two players, both of us would start on the same level. Nobody would have started anywhere else. Anastasia, how you doing today? Nobody started on a higher level than anybody else. You will be on your level, and once you die, the next person will be on the next level, the same level. And while you're on the same level, both of you have to go through the same area. You have to go through the same traps. You have to go through the same minions. You have to go through the same exact level in order for you to get and move onward. So that's why when you see and picture faith, you can't look at someone else's faith and say, man, I wish I had that type of faith, because you start on the same point as everyone else. You might see somebody who is super faithful, has a lot of faith, has a lot of strength, has a lot of understanding and knowledge. You might say, you know what, I wish I was at that point. I wish I was there. Well, guess what? You're going to get to that point because that person started at the same area as you. How you doing, Paula? That person started on the same level as you. What's up, Kay? Good to see you, man. And because that person started at the same level, you can easily ask that person, well, how'd you build your faith? Well, I had to go through the board. I had to go through challenges. See, that's the thing with Mario. Mario, you start off in front, right? You start off on an empty playing field, and as soon as you start to walk forward, Do-do-do-do-do-do. Once you start to walk forward, that's when you start to see some of the minions. And some of the minions are going to start to appear. Some of the challenges are going to start to appear as you're walking. What's up, Trap Wife? Good to see you. Some of those minions will appear. Some of the challenges in your life will appear as soon as you start to walk forward in faith. As soon as you start to walk forward in faith, those challenges will show up. And you have to leap over those challenges, stomp on those challenges. Now, if those challenges grab you and get you, then yeah, you're gonna lose, right? Right? You remember those sounds. I hope you do. But that's what happens, right? You end up losing, but guess what? The beautiful thing about even if you get caught and you lose, you end up right where you started from. See, some people believe that if you lose in life, that you're gonna go backwards. You're gonna start off where you started from. So if you lost at a point, that's where you're gonna pick up from that point. Now, I'm gonna get to the access points that I've been talking about. Once you continue on in the level in Mario, you hit certain things and you grow, right? You hit the mushroom, you tap that mushroom, you grab that mushroom, and that's what happens. El Rich, what's up? You grow, right? You grow in your faith. You grow by understanding, you grow by learning, you grow by experiences. That's what makes Mario grow throughout the game. He grows because he continues to go through the board. He leaps over every challenge that's put in front of him, every brick that he has to jump over, every gap that he has to get around. He has to go through tunnels and go under tunnels to get back up into the ground. Now, once you get to a certain point, you hear a certain sound, and that's your access point. See, once you hit your access point, then even if something happens to you and you feel a certain way and you feel like you're being defeated, you get to start over again from your access point. You don't necessarily have to start from the beginning. You start from your access point. See, when you start from your access point, then you're able to continue to move on into the board. And as you keep moving on, Sheba baby, how you doing today? Once you keep moving on into the board and you keep moving on into your game, you're gonna get to the end of the round. See, once you get to the end of the round, you start to see things a lot clearer because all of the enemies, all of the challenges that you once faced are now dissipating. And once all the challenges are starting to dissipate, you only have one objective to climb up this little brick thing and grab the flag at the top of the flagpole to signify that you have completed the round, to signify that you've completed this stage. Once you've completed the stage, you see Mario walk into a little castle and everything like that. See, but you look at Mario, you add it and you put it to your life. That's the same way our lives are. Our lives are the exact same way. We start off at a certain point. We go through different challenges. We have a bunch of enemies that are there to attack us. Doesn't matter who we are, what we did. These enemies are only programmed to attack us. These challenges are only put in place to slow us down. And we have a time clock that is racing against us. And as we're getting through the level, as we're getting through the board, we get to certain access points. And once we get through certain access points, the access points holds it in place. And once we are held in place, we know that even if we die in this round, we get to come right back to the access point. Now, you may not die in real life when it comes to these certain challenges, but you feel as though that you're defeated. So maybe that's the better word to use, right? Defeated. Once you feel that you're defeated, that's when you come back onto the access point. And once you get back to the access point, then you can continue on in the level. Once you continue on to the level, and once you get to a certain point in the level, then you get to the end of the level. Now, once you get to that end of the level and you reach the top and you grab that flag and you come down and you hear the music, you see the fireworks and everything like that, you've completed this stage in your life. That's how I look at life. Look at life as a video game. You completed this stage. Now, once you're done with this stage, once you've completed this stage, that's not the end all be all. You're just getting started. See, you've only gotten to World 1-1. You still have more stages to go. You still have more challenges to face. You still have more enemies to defeat, while still only equipped with the bare minimum that you received from the last game. The Bible talks about in John 14, verse 1, let not your heart be troubled, believe in God, believe also in me. See, if you ever pictured Mario, if you ever looked at Mario in those games, Mario is never afraid. You notice that? Mario is never afraid. You might be scared playing as Mario, but Mario isn't afraid. As soon as the round starts, he's running full speed, especially if you hit that front arrow, he's running full speed and he doesn't care what is in front of him. He's running full speed. He taps that mushroom, he gets big again, and then he's able to even defeat his enemies even more. Romans 10 verse 17 says, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Understand that Mario only hears when you control him. See, you have a controller and you're controlling Mario and sending signals to the game that's telling Mario what to do. And once you see that Mario is responding to what you're doing, you have to have a little bit of faith in your own self in order to get Mario through the end of the round. See, but you also have to understand that there are going to be so many different enemies that will be put in place to try to get Mario. It's just like life. You're going to have different enemies that will be put in place to get you. And these enemies are not going to be, they're not going to take it easy on you. They're not going to turn away from you. I mean, you can kind of contribute that to almost any game. The enemies are always going to be singling you and always coming directly for you. See, there are certain times that if you look at the game of Pac-Man, there are certain times when you grab something special and then your enemies start to run away from you. And as you grab that certain special thing, you start to feel a certain type of way. Your enemies are running from you. You're able to eat your enemies, but then that is going to wear off over time. And then your enemies are going to turn around and come back and attack you. See, that is something that we all experience in our faithful walk with God, because we're not always faithful to God. See, the minute we are no longer faithful to God, that's when the enemies start to notice that you don't have the power to eat us anymore. And when the enemies realize that you don't have the power to eat them anymore, that's when they turn around and they try to attack you. See, that's exactly what happens when you're playing the game of Pac-Man. See, Pac-Man is just a big mouth that's eating everything in sight. See, we are like Pac-Man because we are literally eating up God's word. We are eating up God's word and everything in sight. And we have this certain type of faith to us because we're able to eat and eat and eat. But then we have to also realize that there are ghosts on the board. And those ghosts can defeat us and they can get into us and destroy us. So we have to run away from them, but still eat up everything in the process. See, that's a hard thing to do because there are certain areas that you want to go, but your enemies are surrounding that area. You know you can't get into that area because the enemies are going to see you and then they're going to attack. And then sometimes you may not have nowhere to run because there's 4 of them and there's 1 of you. And you might run to a corner and they might single you out. And when they single you out and you don't have nowhere to go, guess what happens? Game over, right? But guess what? Throughout the level, throughout the board, there are certain little pellets that are considered to be, I don't even know what you call them in the video game, but I look at them as a faith reminder, a reminder of your faith, a reminder of God's power. See, when you eat that, your enemies turn a different color and they start to run away from you. And when you bite them and you eat them, they disappear and they run back to their corner. They run back to their corner. They run back to their home. They go back to where they belong. See, that's the type of faith you got to have when you're walking and talking to other people. That's the type of faith you have to have when you're doing what you got to do. You got to be willing. You got to be ready to move and to go. You got to have faith. See, if you don't have faith, if you're not strong in that faith, then what's going to happen is that you're going to be eaten by your enemies. But when you have that faith and you grab that pellet and you start to glow a little bit, you turn around and you start to attack those who attack you. You don't attack them in a vicious way. You attack those that Satan will try to send to try to throw you off, to try to make you feel a certain way, to try to make you feel bad about your situation. And as a result, you defeat them by eating. And by the time you realize that you've completed the board. But let's go back to Mario. Now, there are certain levels in Mario where you're not always going to be on solid rock in your run. There's certain boards in Mario where it's not going to be as simple as it was before. I remember playing Mario and I got to maybe World 3. I think World 3 is the underwater level. Either 3 or 5, I'm not sure. I don't remember. But once you're in the underwater land, you're in a different place. You're in a different land. You're outside of your element. See, there are times in your life that you will be outside of your element, and that you're going to not only be outside of your element, but you are also going to have limited tools to get through the level. See, when you were Mario in the underwater level, you had limited tools. You had to swim in order to hit bricks, in order to get mushrooms, in order to get big. And then you had to swim through all of the obstacles. And it seemed like everything was an obstacle because it wasn't just the enemies that were after you, it was the actual outside parts that were after you too. It just seemed like it was so much. Angel Thick, how you doing? It just seemed like it was so much for those levels. I used to always ask myself, am I ever going to get through this level? Because it just seems so difficult. It seems too hard. But guess what? Life is going to be like that. There are going to be stages in your life that are not going to be as easy as other stages. There will be stages where you feel like you're underwater and you feel like all the pressure of the water is drowning you. And you're going to feel like that everything is holding you down. You're going to feel like you have no control over your swim pattern. You're going to feel like you don't have any control whatsoever because everything just seems to be coming up short for you. See, but just like Mario was able to swim through those levels, you have to be willing to swim. You know, um, when I was like 6 years old. I was about 6 years old, and my mother decided to send me to swimming class. And my mother she was a very what we call it in the education realm, we call it hovering. She was a hovering parent. So my mother would hover over everything I did. What's up, Sexy Ronnie? How you doing? My mother would literally hover over everything I did. So I found it very weird that my mother would allow me to go to swimming classes when she hates the fact of swimming. My mother's from the Caribbean, but she hated beaches. She hated swimming because my mother was paranoid. So I don't know why she decided to let me go swimming, but I went swimming. So I took swimming classes. So I remember during swimming classes, it was fun. Everybody would be in the shallow end and everybody's splashing and having a good time. And I remember when they used to say, okay, now it's time for class. And they would show us the backstroke. They would show us the breaststroke. You know, they would show us all types of different ways to swim, how to hold your breath, how to float and everything like that. And I thought all those things were great, but guess what happened? As soon as it was my turn to actually demonstrate what they were showing me, I failed every single time. I got nervous. I got scared because of the fact that I had to deal with a situation where I had zero control. See, when you're swimming, you have zero control of what happens when you swim. See, you can kind of maneuver through the water to get from one point to the next. Sure, you can definitely do that. You can learn how to float on the water. Sure, you can definitely do that. But one thing about water is always moving. It's always wavy, right? So when you're sitting and you're floating, but you're not staying in one place. You're kind of moving with the waves. And if you're on the sea, the actual sea, you definitely can't control that. At least in a pool, there's some level of control. But when you're on a sea, you have zero control. Meaning, what's going on? You have zero control. So for me, I was scared to death of that. I was scared to death to have zero control. And as much as I would love to swim, but I would always swim in the shallow end because I know if I couldn't, if my legs wasn't moving the right way, if my front part wasn't stroking the right way, then I knew for sure I could just stand up and I'll be standing on the shallow end and I'll be able to, I'll be able to stand. You know how people standing in the water and they're going like this? Yeah, that was me. But a couple classes went by and I started to get a little bit more confident. I was able to swim from one end back to the other. I was able to. I learned how to do the breaststroke correctly. You keep your head underwater. You hold your breath. Then you space your head outwards. And then you go back again. I learned it. I learned how to do it. I learned how to do it. And then the challenge came where they said, okay, today's class we're going to start in the 10-foot area. Now I was shaking in my boots because not only are we starting in the 8-foot on the 10-foot area, but now I have to learn how to dive where I couldn't dive. Everybody learned how to dive because they were practicing in the deep end. I didn't go to the deep end to learn how to dive because you can't dive in the shallow end. Because if you dive too deep in the shallow end, you can hit your head in the bottom. And that's all types of problems. See, I remember Luke 1, verse 37. For nothing will be impossible with God. And I remember that was something that was kind of going through my head. Oh, okay, God's not going to let me drown. Not going to let me die. I had to tell myself that in order for me to swim. So everybody got to the far end, and everybody was lined up. You know how those you ever seen those commercials or those TVs or those movies, those old school movies where the ladies are in the pool and they're all dancing and synchronized dance and everything like that in the pool, and they kind of line up on the side and they all dive in sequential order? Yeah, that wasn't what was happening. That wasn't what was about that. Iris, how you doing today? They literally everybody was standing on the sides, and one by one everybody leaped in. Everybody leaped in. You saw all the splashing and everything like that, right? Everybody saw the splashing and everything was going on, and all that stuff was fun. And here you see Lil Zams on the side, and they're saying, "Come on, come on, come on in, come on in." I said, like right now, like here in this, like when you've been practicing diving, right?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So I watched what they did, and I dove in. I promise you, I think I was swimming for about 3 seconds. I started swimming, and then I think the top part of my body was doing this, but the bottom part of my body was swinging its feet inside the water. Before I knew it, I was underneath. All I remember was looking up and seeing the top of the water, the top of the pool, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like this. I'm like, but I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. That's what I kept saying to myself as I was going further down into the deep end. I'm going to die. So of course the lifeguard came in, grabbed me, brought me up, you know, slapped my back, get the water out of my mouth, my nose, my lungs. They literally said, he said, what happened? You dived in perfectly. You knew exactly what to do when you dived in, but you got into the water and then all of a sudden you drowned. I said, I don't know. I just felt like I had no control. I felt like I couldn't reach down and touch the bottom. I just had no control. Don't we feel that way now? Don't you feel like you have no control sometimes? Sometimes you go through life and you see how other people do it. You kind of watch how other people get through it. You say, okay, well, if they can get through it, then why can't I? Oh, if they can maneuver through that, why can't I? Of course, I can maneuver through that. I can handle that. And then as soon as you start to believe in yourself, to know that you can handle it, that's when the devil comes in and then he tries to change the narrative. He comes in and starts to sprinkle something called doubt in your mind. Oh, yeah, you may be able to handle it, but you don't know how deep that is. Yeah, you might be able to maneuver through that, but you don't know what twists and turns are around the corner. Yeah, you might be able to walk in faith, but you don't even know whether or not you're walking on a sidewalk or you're walking in quicksand. You have no idea what you're about to step into. And Satan will put those thoughts in your mind. Satan will put those thoughts in your heart, and then you start to feel a certain way. Well, maybe I shouldn't walk this path. Maybe I shouldn't go this way. Maybe I shouldn't go this direction. Maybe I should just stay where I'm at. That's why a lot of us suffer from a destructive and horrible sickness called complacency. Samoka, how you doing? See, some of us, we suffer from a thing called complacency. And because we suffer from a thing called complacency, then we continually always finding ourselves suffering, staying in one place, not moving forward, not gaining speed, not gaining traction, because we are too busy stuck in one particular place in our lives, and that is called complacency. See, I was complacent in that water because I chose not to learn how to swim in the deep end. I chose not to think about the deep end as a 10-foot drop, but to think of the deep end as just another part of the shallow end. See, I was able to swim great in the shallow end. I had no issues swimming in the shallow end. But the minute I decided to swim in the deep end, I let it overtake me. And even now as an adult, when I swim, I start to feel as though I'm that same kid that was swimming in the shallow end. I swim great. If I'm underwater, yeah, I swim great. But as soon as I get out, further out, and I look down and I don't see my feet, and I don't see the bottom of the ocean, I then revert back to the little kid that saw the 10-foot drop in the deep end, and all of a sudden I forget how to swim. I forget how to float. I forget how to do all the things that I know how to do, because now all I'm considering and thinking about is not drowning. See, that's exactly how we are in life. We get so confident and we get so caught up on who we can be and what we can accomplish that we continue to go. But as soon as you're triggered, as soon as something appears that you have never faced before, or something that you don't want to face right now, you revert back to the scared person that you once was. You revert back to the child that you used to be. You revert back because now you're starting to question and doubt yourself. And that's all Satan wants us to do. Satan wants us to doubt ourselves and to doubt in the power of God. Speaking of power, Ephesians 2 verse 8 says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not of your own doing. It is a gift of God." God gives us a gift. He gives us all gifts. And because he gives us gifts, he gives us something that no gift on earth can equal. And that is the gift of power. God gives us power when we need it most. When we need power, he gives us. See, when we have that urge, when we have that doubtful spirit that Satan tries to put in us, to where we can't swim as far as we need to swim, we can't run, we can't jump, we can't get through levels, we can't get through the obstacles, we can't get through the enemies because of the fact that we're just too nervous and we're scared. That's when God gives us power. See, God gives us power so that we're able to get through that. Philippians 4 verse 13 says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," right? It's Christ who strengthens me, who gives me power. See, there's a part in the game of Mario where Mario is running through everything and he is going through everything. But then he hits one of the bricks thinking that it's going to be another mushroom or a one-up to give him an extra life, and then a star jumps out. A star jumps out. Look at that star. Think of it. Yeah, this jumps out, right? Dr. Sam Ham, how you doing? Now this, right? This jumps out. And as it's jumping out, it's not staying in one place. Because if you notice, the mushroom, it kind of jumps out and it kind of moves slowly away. The flower, is for its flower power, kind of sits there in place. But the star leaps out and the star tends to jump, right? Now Mario is trying to grab that star because that star is full of power. See, that's exactly how God's word is. God's word is just like the star that jumps out of the brick when Mario hits it. It's going to jump around. It's not going to stay in one place. It's going to jump around. Almond Joy, how you doing this morning? Good to see you. It's going to continue to jump around. So you have to grab that star power. You have to grab the power of that star in order for you to have endless power. Well, it's not endless power, it's limited. So once Mario touches that star, all of a sudden you see Mario, he is turned up, right? He is endowed with this power. This power is flowing all through Mario to the point where his whole body is glowing. And the enemies that were in front of him, they tend to flee. They're running away from Mario because now Mario is filled with this power and he's literally running through everybody. And no enemy, no obstacle is stopping Mario when he has this power flowing through him. When he has this power endowed in him, he is running through everything. What makes you think that that same power that Mario has in that video game is not the same power that God can give you to defeat your enemies, to defeat those obstacles that's in front of you, to defeat those things that constantly stop you from getting further in life? What makes you think that those things are not going to stop, are not going to be defeated once you grab that power? 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says, for God gives us the spirit not of fear, but of power, of love and self-control. See, when God gives us that power, especially as Mario got that power from that star, nothing can stand in your way. No enemy can stop you. No enemy can move and push up on you because you have that star power. I mean, like I said, if you ever played the game of Mario, Super Mario, Mario World, Mario Brothers, that star is hot commodity. And you don't get that star all the time. That's another thing. When it comes to God's power, you can get that power anytime you ask for it. But it's only when you obtain it. It's how you obtain it. See, sometimes we want that power so much, we want that power so bad that we will try to do everything to try to get that power. But then once the power is available to us, and if we're not prepared or ready to take on that power, then that power is going to bounce around until it disappears. That's exactly what happens in the game. The star bounces around, and if it gets to a cliff, it's going to leap off that cliff, and then that's the end of that power. You've missed your opportunity. You've missed your opportunity. Beautiful thing about God's power is not like the power that's in Mario Land, where the star bounces around. It's not like that. See, God's power is something that sits in one place. It stays put. Because that power is going to show itself. That power is going to reveal itself. That power is going to help you see exactly who you need to be. That power is going to reveal the type of person you are. It's going to reveal the type of strategy that you have. It's going to reveal the type of strength that you have. See, it's not only God's power that's going to reveal these things, but you have to understand the word I'm looking for. You're going to have to receive that power and trust that the power is going to elevate you and take you higher. But if you're trying to gain that power for personal gain, then you've missed the point. And that power is going to bounce away and leave you. Acts 1 verse 8 says, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. All of these things take place while playing Mario, right? And because all these things take place while playing Mario, you still have to remember the key objective. The key objective of Mario is to get to the princess, to get to the end of the level. Now, while you're trying to get to the end of the level, you also have to get to that access point. That's the most important thing in this level. Get to that access point. Because as the level gets more intense, as it gets more difficult, as it gets harder over time, you have to get to that access point in order to, you to keep your spot. Another game that does that very well is called Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog came out for Genesis, and that was kind of like the combatant to Mario. And what happens? Sega Genesis, I should say. Now, same thing. But the only difference is with Sonic is that you have to run through the board as fast as you can. See, that's another thing. Some of us, we want to run through life as fast as we can. We want to get fast money. We want to get fast cars. We want to get fast notoriety. We want to get it all fast. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to take our time because we want to get there quick. That's the type of generation we're living in today. Everything has to be instant. Everything has to be fast. You send a message, it has to be sent out instant message, right? You send a mail. We used to put it in a mailbox. We used to have to wait a couple of weeks for our mail to reach our destination. No, now we can do emails. We can reach our emails. We can reach our destinations in a couple of seconds. In Sonic, he had to get rings, right? And if you got hit by any of your enemies, you will lose all of your rings. And if you get hit again without obtaining new rings, then you're dead. But Sonic always had access points. No matter how fast he ran, no matter how quick he was going, he was always having to go through an access point. And that access point was going to keep his spot for the next time he was around. See, if he kept running and he ran into something that was bigger than him, if he ran into something that was greater than him, if he ran into something that hurt him and that destroyed him, then he would have to go ahead and start again. But instead of starting from the beginning of the board, he started from the access point. And because he started from the access point, all of the hardship that he faced before in the old level, he doesn't have to face that again in this next set, because everything that happened before that access point, he doesn't have to revisit that. He doesn't have to go through that. He can just focus on what he did from the access point to where he got hit, and he could focus on that. And when you're focusing on that, and when you're studying that, then you don't have to worry about what happened to you before, because you've reached your access point to tell you that you've learned your lesson from before. You've learned what you went through before, and now you can go through something different. You can go through something new by hitting this access point and continually running and moving on. Definitely, Paula. This morning, we have access to access points in our lives. Not only do we have access to access points in our lives, but we also have a method and a way to get to those access points. We have a design to follow, a map to look at. The map that we look at is a map that is given to us by God. God is telling us exactly what we need to do, showing us what we need to do, displaying to us where we need to go. See, the access points in your life are simply there to remind you of how far you've been, and to know that even if you mess up along the way, you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to start over. You could pick up from where you left off. You could pick up from where you once was. She's MJ Bad. What's up? Good to see you this morning. She's MJ Bad. You can pick up from where you left off. You don't have to start from scratch. If you run into a brick wall in life, you don't have to pick up the pieces and take it all the way back to the beginning starting point in your life. You could pick it up from where you left off. You could pick it up from where you got hit. And guess what? For some of us, we can get hit. And because of the fact we got hit the one time, we can make the changes needed. Unfortunately, there are some among us who constantly get hit, who gets hit in the same way. It's called stubbornness. We spoke about that when we were talking about Proverbs. We was talking about Proverbs. We talked about stubbornness, foolishness, because continually doing the same thing. Pretty now, what's up? Continually doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. That's insanity. And when you're doing that, you're also stubborn because you're told and you're shown what you shouldn't be doing, what you need to be doing. And yet still you're not focusing on that. You're focusing on other things. You have to remember, though you might run into a brick wall, though the obstacles of life might get maybe too much for you, though you might have to jump over things and leap over bounds that you may not have thought that you had the power to leap over, even though you might run into hardship in your life, you might run into difficulties in your life. I want to remind you this morning that not only do you have the power to run through your enemies, to run through those obstacles, but you also have an access point where you can learn from the lessons from before and apply it to the lessons of today. See, we go through life not because of the fact that we're going to learn something new and we're going to forget everything else. You learn and you continue to learn over time. You learn and you continue to grow over time. You learn and you continue to apply over time. If you go through hardship and then you don't learn anything from it, and then you don't apply anything from it, then you're wasting your time because you're going to get the same results every single time. I don't understand how people do the same thing over and over again, and then they sit there and they complain about their life being so hard. Man, my life is so hard. I keep getting into the same drama. That perhaps maybe you should change what you're getting into. Perhaps you should change the people you're hanging around. Maybe you should change the type of person you are. Maybe you're surrounding yourself with drama because you continually put yourself in drama. Maybe sometimes you need to be quiet and not let your mouth put you back into the same rut that you were in before. This morning, I want us to take the time to dedicate ourselves to God when it comes to the access points in life. Know that these access points were given to us for a reason. Know that these access points were put here in order for us to run, get through our obstacles, and if we are to get hurt along the way. If we are to lose focus, we can always go back to the access point and start from there. We don't have to start from the beginning. And at the end, our goal is not necessarily to save a princess in a castle or to defeat Dr. Robotnik. Our goal is to get to our mansion, to be with our Lord and Savior, to leave this dying world, to live for eternity. That's the whole point of this game. And that's why we need to remain focused on this game. The access points of faith is going to help you do that. So identify those those access points of faith. At the end of the day, those are the only thing that's going to keep us afloat, keeps us focused. We're going to do our roll call. We're going to pray, close out. I want to thank everybody for joining me this morning. This was as animated as this broadcast was this morning. I hope the point Walking B, what's up? I hope the point um, was made. The access points of faith is just like the access points in Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog, the video games. They're there to hold the spot, hold your place, so that you don't have to start from the beginning when you mess up. You don't have to start from scratch when you mess up. You can just pick up from where you left off. And when you pick up from where you left off, you can keep going until you win. Remember, star power. Star power is important. Star power is important. Remember that. All right. Over here in Facebook, Deborah, good to see you. Sister Gerald, blessings, good to see you. Over here in Cubs Ministry, Sister Gibson, good to see you. Mother Marisol, blessings, good to see you. Over here live me, Paula, good to see you, Paula. Pretty Nell, good to see you this morning. Walking V, blessings to you, my sister. Good to see you this morning. So Spicy, blessings. Good to see you. David, blessings. Mocha, good to see you this morning. Mimi, good to see you this morning. Iris, blessings. Good to see you. Sexy Ronnie, good to see you this morning. Dream Only, good to see you. Miss Wet, good to see you this morning. Baseball King, blessings, bro. Sheba Baby, good to see you. Ferrari, question, good to see you. L Rich, blessings. Simply Me, blessings. Good to see you. Trap White, good to see you this morning. King, blessings. Good to see you, man. Nigel, good to see you this morning. Pastor Wilson, good to see you, my brother. Good to see you this morning. All right, folks. Once again, just want to thank y'all for joining this morning. Hope to be on a little bit later on this afternoon. If not, I should be back on tonight. So, once again, just want to thank y'all for joining. Let's pray. Father God in heaven, we just want to thank you, Lord, for allowing us this opportunity this morning to spend time in your word. Help us, Lord, to remember the access points of faith, dear Father. To know that when we mess up, that when we run into obstacles, when an enemy defeats us, dear Father God, we don't have to start from scratch. We can pick up from where we left off, dear Father. At the end of the day, dear Lord, we are always going to have enemies. We're always going to have people trying to take us down and take us away from you. But Lord God, we ask you to continue to help us to be faithful to you to the end. Help us, Lord, to continue to lift you up and to continue to focus on you, dear Lord. For Lord God, you are our only means of focus and our only means of life. Help us, Lord, to remember the star power that is shown from time to time, dear Lord. Even in the game of Mario, that star power pops up out of nowhere. And Lord God, sometimes we need that power of you, your power to pop up out of nowhere. So that way, when we grab that power, we hone that power, we put that power within us, our enemies and our obstacles will fall to the wayside because of your power that's flowing through us. We give you all the love, we give you all the respect, we give you all the honor. Bless us throughout the rest of this day. Guide us and keep us in Christ's name. Amen. Walking B, I love you too. Love you too, sis. So once again, just want to thank you all for joining. You want to stay on live me for just a second, a little longer. Everybody else, just want to thank you all for joining. And again, you guys have a great day. Have a blessed day. Have a strong day. You guys be blessed. Take care. All right, live me. What's up? Good to see you guys this morning. I've never seen a black man.